If you had a choice to be any weapon you want, what would you even be? A sword, an axe, a flamethrower, a pencil? The choices are truly limitless. You can be anything, and I mean anything. You can even try to be a chainsaw man, and that's crazy. Who would ever want to be a chainsaw?
I really want to touch her boobs.
Wow, this is probably the most relatable thing I've ever read. Chainsaw Man is like no other. It is a chaotic journey of a man, child equivalent, who just wants to pop a feel. So he fights demons and devils to finally do the thing he's always wanted. But this story isn't as simple as I made it out to be. Chainsaw Man by Tatsuki Fujimoto takes place in a world infested with fiends and devils like Margaret Thatcher, Boris Johnson, or just British people in general. It is a bizarre story that leaves you with a question, that question being, what the fuck did I just even watch?
Denji here is a human. However, he can also turn into a devil.
Chainsaw Man is no fairy tale. It is a bizarre story that takes place in a world where your fears come to life. The gun devil from America exists, there's a tomato devil, and if you fear British people, there's also a devil for that. The senseless violence in Chainsaw Man isn't as seamless as one may think. The world is brutal, violent, and unforgiving for all these characters that we will probably love. But these same characters are fragile, and who are just as fallible as us. Chainsaw Man starts off with something most people are familiar with, worrying about the next meal. A young boy named Denji is trying to figure out his budget, what money he will have in order to pay for his meal. Since his father died, all loans he had transferred to him for some reason, so most of his money is used to pay this extreme debt. Denji isn't alone. His only companion is a dog chainsaw devil hybrid named Pochita, and the two team up to kill devils and sell their parts to the Yakuza, the same people putting Denji in debt. Denji is a character who we see suffer, and outside forces govern his life. There are many things out of our control, but it's important to cement our energy and use it to make choices of our own will. Denji's first meeting with Pochita proves this. When he meets Pochita, he's afraid, but sees himself in this dying creature. He offers his blood to Pochita, and the two enter into a contract of saving one another. Instead of death, Denji chooses to continue living. Denji's desire to live is exploited by adults around him. Rather than being seen as a young boy who's lost everything, he's seen as this expendable dog. This reoccurring mention of dogs isn't just a meme, but the small detail will be a reoccurring image in the world of chainsaws, devil, and fiends. Later in the first episode, it's revealed that the Yakuza made a deal with the zombie devil for more power and wealth. Denji feels as if he's being punished for crossing some line and that he should have been satisfied with his current life and what was normal for him. He internalizes being called a dog because after all, a dog knows its place. Shouldn't he just conform, just like a dog? He analyzes the situation and tries to figure out the Yakuza's motive. For a boy who has lived in poverty for most of his life, the Yakuza's desire for more when he seemed to already have everything bewilders him. What makes Denji special as a character is that he catches onto these small little nuances in people's actions and can empathize with them to a certain degree, but he's also incredibly determined to put himself first. For a boy who is forced to put his own dreams last in the name survival, his drive is so special. The violence in Chainsaw Man just hammers this home. Pochita becoming Denji's heart and transforming him into the infamous Chainsaw Man is a beautiful aspect to their friendship. Pochita wants Denji to live his dreams now that Pochita has fulfilled his desire to be hugged by someone. Pochita lives on in Denji's memories and even his desires shown by Denji echoing the wish to be hugged at the end of this episode. Something always threw me off. It's not the violence or this grotesque, hideous creature, but it's this specific scene of Makima hugging Denji and saying, "You're human." Something about that smile. It's almost too good to be true. This is a wish that Denji has had for a long time, to be held by a girl. But I think it kind of transcends all this violence on the page and its scenes. At this moment, he's held by another person that doesn't want to kill him. Without context of this entire series, I would smile. But the way this world works, is this hug really genuine? Is this true care for someone? And at that moment, I knew that Chainsaw Man may be something different. I wish it was just this chapter, or this episode even, of a kid tormented by his environment and finally be embraced by someone who is not evil. Fujimoto is simply illustrating how the world operates. Similar to a baby, Denji is clueless about his own existence, his powers, so much so that he goes into his first fight on the job, not knowing there's only as much chainsaw power as there is blood in his body, and it puts him at a straight disadvantage. Granted, this doesn't last long, but it also makes him some sort of underdog that we can root for, and honestly, I love that. There's actually a point to the needless brutality and misery surrounding this world. However, that's to contrast with Denji's life once he joins public safety. Upon meeting Makima, he states that his dreams is to eat bread with jam every single day for breakfast. If he can do something simple like that, he'll consider that to be a happy and awesome life. This idea of Denji searching for happiness is one of the most important aspects of this character. We're seeing the seeds planted well in the anime, and hopefully it just keeps on going. Denji is a man of simple pleasure. He enjoys just being able to eat 3 times a day, take a warm bath, talk to a woman that seems to be interested in him. There are rough moments, however, like when he meets his direct supporter, Aki, a stern and emotionless public safety officer who beats him in an attempt to make him quit. But Denji just kind of laughs it off and, well, kicks him in the nuts. A lot. As far as main characters go, Denji stands out from basically any anime protagonist I can think of. He is a punk. He's curt, fairly stupid, short-sighted, horny, rude, and also very horny. However, it's his short-sightedness that makes him very interesting to watch, since his motivation is always changing, just like a kid. Denji isn't all too familiar with the world of devil hunting, making him misinformed and uneducated in comparison to others. Being stupid or lacking any awareness isn't uncommon in storytelling, but Denji's level of intellect is something directly related to his standard of living. He has never had a proper education, and this only translates to social settings. This also explains his lack of a moral compass. From the start, Denji shows a complete lack of remorse to those he's fighting, even going so far as to torture one devil so much so that they take their own life out of pain. It's a striking contrast to that of someone like Naruto, who always tries to understand his enemies, or Demon Slayer's Tanjiro, who opts for empathy even when he has to put a demon down. Devils similar to Demon Slayer or even Devilman can be anything. Devils in Chainsaw Man can take the forms of literally anything, adding a new style of horror in an already diverse world. There are so many grotesque creatures in Chainsaw Man, like the Bat Devil and Leech Devils, and other being grotesque mutations of the human form. In this latter case, humanoid devils often represent body horror, twisting human anatomy into something that's not supposed to be, well, natural. Chainsaw Man does this to varying degrees with its heroes and villains alike, starting with the mild examples such as Denji himself. At the start of the series, Denji died at the hands of the zombie devil, only for his loyal dog Pochita to combine their bodies and form Chainsaw Man. Now Denji has a ripcord in his chest, a vaguely unsettling sight to see, and then he sprouts chainsaw blades in his true form. His arms are split up and damaged by the blades, and his head is filled with sharp teeth. However, his body remains the same, highlighting the contrast between man and devil, and how he is a perfect blend of both. One example that hurts in how it was written and drawn was Himeno's death. Himeno sacrificed one body part after another to her devils in order to fight the fierce katana men, with her arms vanishing while her shirt's long sleeves fluttered about. This was no ordinary case of amputation. It was Himeno giving up her body parts to a devil, with her arms unnaturally vanishing in an instant. She had already given up an eye to gain devilish power, but seeing her body disappear piece by piece until nothing remained was something else entirely. It was sad and honestly horrifying. By their very nature, devils are a mockery of humans. They're not shaped by natural evolution, nor designed in a lab. These are terrifying creatures whose bones and face all mesh together. Wait a fucking minute, is that Kirby? Devils in mainstream media employ grotesque body horror, mock humanity's fertility, and suggest that the human form is easily destroyed or mutated at will. Humans are weak compared to devils, and their bodies become a devil's unwitting plaything, which adds even more to the psychological pressure to devil hunters. Even benevolent devils like Pochita do this, with Pochita infusing himself into Denji's dead body and turning him into a chainsaw man for survival's sake. Denji's weak human form stood no chance, so he needed a devil to save him, but at the cost of becoming a monster. These characters are humans with awesome powers, but also ones that suffer, break, and bleed easily, just like the audience, making these characters a lot more lovable, in my opinion. Look at all these characters: Aki, Power, Makima, Crazy Kobani with a knife and a gun for some reason, as well as this hot girl with an eye patch who...
Do what?
Fuck.
Yeah, I have no word to describe her. Anyway, each person we see has something new to offer that is slowly peeled by Fujimoto. Take Aki for example. He embodies your typical rival. He is stoic, serious, and reserved. The life of a devil hunter isn't always about the day-to-day near-death experiences. They're still humans. This means that they do normal people things, and yet it came to a surprise when the anime chose to add a anime original scene that showcased exactly this. Aki's morning routine is probably my favorite scene in this episode. This is absent from the original manga, but its inclusion is a refreshing palate cleanser from the regular doom and gloom of the world of devils and carnage that is Chainsaw Man. Aki's routine gives the audience a new side to a character we don't completely understand. The inclusion of the scene helps clean the regular gloom of the world of devils and brutality. Waking up, washing your face, drinking some coffee, and reading your local news is a very real thing that people do, but when he prepares for work, which is killing devils, isn't really normal, like at all. Chainsaw Man does a lot of things well, one being that it deconstructs basic archetypes, especially of those that are stoic. We see time and time again that Aki's self-sacrificial attitude has an effect on everyone around him. His campaign against the gun devil is what drives him to work. He lost everything and will only see his life fulfilled if he kills the devil that took his family away. Aki is grieving and angry, a character who initially seems to be this rival, has a tragic story, and is someone you can empathize with. Chainsaw Man's cast of characters are completely unhinged. Yes, some of these characters make sense in this world, like Aki, but some of them are just straight up weird. Take Himeno, Kobani, and Power for example. All three of them at some point attempt to kill Denji in a serious way, or for the most part, harm. Himeno pukes in his mouth and attempts to sleep with him. He's also 16, by the way. Kobani tries to kill him for that Eternity Devil, and Power tries to feed him to the Bat Devil. These characters are deeply flawed, This may seem like a messed up harem anime or some garbage like that, but these chaotic women are awesome part of this series. This type of writing allows Denji's story to flow. Denji is a young boy who isn't really familiar with the world around him. He learns that people of this public safety division can just be as disgusting and threatening as those of the Yakuza. And this eventually dulls his behavior and horniness somewhat, but not by that much. When Denji first met Power, all he could think about was touching her chest, but soon enough he got his wish and realized it wasn't that life-changing, and eventually he had no sexual feelings towards Power. Denji remains a horny teenage boy, of course, because he's literally 16, but the women he meets on his journey help him to see a much wider range of what relationships with women can be for him. And even without considering their effect on Denji, they're just very fun characters. At first, Denji sees Power as this sex object. He only views Power as a means to fulfill his desires. He even goes so far to fight a bat devil just so he can get second base with Power. He does achieve his goal, but then immediately has an existential crisis when he questions the value of intimacy he holds in such high regard. Without any kind of emotional connection to Power, feeling her was a pretty hollow experience for him. His depression endures until his primary love interest, Makima, explains how deeply knowing a partner affects and enhances those relationships. While he processes all the weird shit Makima just said to him, he begins to form a genuine connection with Power. The two bond over briefly losing their pets, and then start living and working together. In classic shonen fashion, they form strategies to overcome their grueling training together, and later realize that their shared status as humanoid devils makes them closer to each other than anyone else. They still ignore each other to no end, but their shared status as outcasts give them a kind of solidarity and a unique bond. This story would be a lot different if Denji and Power's escapades were interrupted by one of them blushing at every innocent touch or internally monologuing about hidden meanings in innocuous comments. As the story isn't forcing them into a relationship, they get to be more fully formed people with consideration put into other parts of their personalities. Such as Denji's budding love of movies or Power's odd obsession with awards and titles, they're goofballs, and every panel they share together is a treat. In its storytelling, Chainsaw Man is a step up from Fujimoto's previous work, Fire Punch. These characters are still messed up, and the world these characters live is brutal. With this older series like Fire Punch, which is relatively shorter than most manga, Fire Punch was able to explore the ideas of a heroic figure to the people, and what it means to be one. The only problem is that Fire Punch was a finished story. All the ideas that Fujimoto explored in this specific story came to its immediate conclusion. I will be honest with you. It's hard to know what will happen in the future of the series that's truly bizarre and can go in any direction. Despite not knowing how this series will end, it's important to just look at the story that we have right now. Whether it be big or small, literal or not, the characters make these decisions to keep the story going. And so far with the story we have, all I can say is that this is awesome. Most of these characters have made a deal with the devil. Obviously not all, but most. All these humans give something up, such as their own blood or even their own lives. Aki had to give up his life to the Fox Devil's powers, but had to put his life at risk to protect others. Sacrifice on top of sacrifice, knowing damn well he might not even get a chance to kill the Gun Devil. But like most of these characters, they all have to make minor personal sacrifices, which leads into this weird form of a Suicide Squad style of anti-heroes. Denji, despite having so little to lose, also had to make a sacrifice to make gains. He gave up his dignity and body by becoming Makima's obedient dog, and in return, gained access to meals, a job, a new purpose, and Makima's eerie but comforting company. The many literal and personal sacrifices in Chainsaw Man's story help reinforce the series' grim, bloody tone, but that's not all. This theme of reoccurring sacrifice also keeps Chainsaw Man's combat system in check. Characters in action stories should power up for believable reasons, and powers doesn't come free. These characters have to give something up to gain a new power or convince someone to help them defeat an enemy, which lends weight to those power-ups. If characters like Denji, Aki, or even the villains must make sacrifices to gain powers or allies, then this currency ensures that nothing spirals out of control. If a character can't or won't pay the proper price for power, they won't get it. Chainsaw Man is a dark and graphic shonen adventure, both in manga and anime form. Without a doubt, this story examines the pain of being isolated and lonely, to the noble virtues of trusting someone and giving them a second chance. Denji is poorly educated and largely ignorant of the world and its ways, having lived in partially feral existence as an outcast boy who used his Chainsaw Devil dog to find meager work to survive. Now Denji is surrounded by friends and allies, or rather he thinks he is. What makes Denji very interesting is that he doesn't hate the characters he fought. Yeah, there is that tension, but hate works differently than we see in Attack on Titan, where it's fueled by revenge and literal hate for these creatures. With some battles over, he mourns the lost relationships, but he put an end to that problem, and now he's ready to face tomorrow. Denji is a survivor, in short, mentally and physically. He longs for friendships and ignorantly befriends many people who are plotting against him or who are just straight up weird. But he can survive his own naive ways with his chainsaw powers and mental fortitude. He's a walking tank. You can take him down, but he'll still rise again, making him really awesome. In that way, Denji is surprisingly mature and gracious, even if he's also driven by lust and lends to annoy everyone around him. When things are at their worst, and Denji so close to death, he still manages to be the one left standing in the end. I read the manga before the anime was ever announced, but I'm not going to say that the manga is better than the anime. In reality, both are great, but the experience I have with anime is something I don't get with manga. I sit with my group of friends every week and watch the new Chainsaw Man episode. I know what happens in the story, but it's awesome to see viewers of Chainsaw Man not know what will happen next, what fight will emerge. And when I read the first 20 chapters of Chainsaw Man, I was just shocked and amazed. And I'm honestly glad that everyone and their mother is finally getting to experience Chainsaw Man, which is honestly a masterpiece.